In the summer of 2019, 25-year-old Rachel Hale set out alone on a 4-day trek through Grand Teton National Park, a trail she knew better than most. 2 days later, her boots were gone, her footprints stopped on bare rock, and she had vanished without a trace. 6 months later, her belongings began to reappear in impossible places. What happened in those mountains remains unsolved, but the fragments she left behind tell a story far stranger than simple disappearance. Rachel Hale's last morning began in the cool, pale light that slips into the Tetons just before sunrise, turning the peaks into jagged silhouettes against a washed-out sky. At 24, she was no stranger to solitude. Friends said she had a way of disappearing into her own thoughts even in a crowded room. Hiking alone wasn't new to her, it was a ritual. She'd chosen August 7, 2019, for a reason. The weather promised crisp mornings, clear afternoons, and skies littered with stars at night. Her silver Subaru rolled into the String Lake trailhead just after 6, crunching over gravel, its headlights briefly illuminating the pines. In the passenger seat sat her neatly packed day pack, the top zipper slightly open to reveal a corner of her waterproof journal, and beside it, a small brown bag of protein bars. In the back, sealed plastic bags held trail maps, folded so precisely they could have come straight from a store shelf. This was who Rachel was, deliberate, meticulous, almost ceremonial in the way she prepared for the wild. According to the handwritten note tucked under the driver's seat, her route was clear: String Lake to Paintbrush Canyon, loop through Cascade Canyon, 2 nights camping, check-in with her mother each evening via Garmin. Her first check-in came exactly as promised, 7:12 p.m., a brief text. Camped. All good. No one knew it would be her last. Somewhere between the orderliness of her plans and the chaos that was about to follow, Rachel stepped onto the trail that morning with an expression of quiet determination, the kind of look you wear when you think you know where you're going, unaware that the map in your hands might not be the one the mountain intends for you. By the time park rangers reached Rachel Hale's first campsite on the afternoon of August 9, 2019, the air was heavy with the scent of wet pine and sun-warmed stone. It had been 36 hours since her last Garmin check-in, and the absence of her nightly message was enough to jolt her mother into calling the park office before dawn. The site itself sat just off the Paintbrush Canyon Trail, hidden between granite boulders and a thin screen of spruce, the kind of place a seasoned hiker chooses for both shelter and silence. At first glance, nothing looked disturbed. The tent stood perfectly staked, rain-fly taut, as though waiting for its occupant to return from a short walk. Inside, her sleeping bag was neatly unrolled, a small cooking pot rested on its side, and beside it lay a pouch of dehydrated lentils, half-eaten, spoon still inside. Her waterproof journal was open on a page filled with hurried but legible notes, mid-sentence, as though she'd simply stepped away. But her boots were gone. So was her day pack. The rest of her gear, bear spray, camp stove, GPS unit, remained exactly where it should have been. Rangers followed her footprints westward, watching them veer away from the trail toward a narrow ledge that overlooked Cascade Canyon. And then, nothing. The prints stopped abruptly on smooth rock, no scuff marks, no drag lines, no signs of a fall. The slope below was gentle enough to rule out a hidden drop. It was as though she had stepped forward and dissolved into the thin summer air. Hours later, only 300 yards from the tent, they found a curious arrangement: a small bundle of fresh white columbine flowers, carefully laid on a flat stone, and beside them, a single silver earring glinting in the late afternoon sun. As the weeks bled into months, the search for Rachel Hale transformed from an urgent rescue operation into a slow, stubborn hunt for answers. The official search was scaled back by late September 2019, but not before dozens of volunteers, some strangers, some friends, had combed more than 40 square miles of rugged backcountry. They worked on foot, by helicopter, and even with thermal drones, sweeping valleys, ridgelines, and creek beds. Yet the mountains held their silence. By November, the Tetons were locked beneath an early crust of snow, the wind whispering through skeletal aspen groves like a warning to turn back. Rachel's disappearance slipped into the cold files as an unresolved wilderness mystery. Theories blossomed online, each stranger than the last. Some claimed she staged her vanishing, escaping into an untraceable new life. Others insisted foul play was the only answer. A few speculated she had fallen into a hidden crevasse, or been mauled by a bear, despite the absence of blood, scat, or even torn fabric. Every theory had its cracks. Why would she leave behind her GPS, the one thing her mother could track? Why arrange flowers and abandon a piece of jewelry? And why did her journal, always her most faithful companion, end mid-sentence? Winter passed with no sign of her. When the spring melt came in May 2020, the rangers expected to find something: a scrap of clothing, a snapped trekking pole, even a boot. But nothing surfaced. Rachel's mother refused to accept that her daughter had simply ceased to exist. She kept Rachel's bedroom untouched, from the half-burned candle on the nightstand to the dog-eared hiking guide on the bed. She didn't vanish, she told reporters softly. Either she was taken, or she went somewhere we can't follow. February 2020, 6 months after Rachel Hale vanished, Ranger Clay Morano was conducting a winter wildlife survey high in the Cathedral Group, studying golden eagle nesting patterns above the frozen surface of Lake Solitude. It was a pale, brittle morning, the air thin and sharp, when his binoculars caught a strange flicker in one of the massive nests perched 200 feet up a weathered pine. Golden eagles often line their nests with scavenged debris, bones, sticks, scraps of cloth, but this glint was different. Through the glass, Morano saw something red, synthetic, wound tightly into the branches. He radioed for a climbing team. Hours later, 3 rangers scaled the ice-crusted trunk. What they retrieved made the air seem even colder: a torn red fleece jacket, the exact brand and size Rachel had been wearing. In its pocket was a water-damaged photograph of her with her mother, still recognizable beneath the stains. Beside it lay a single silver earring, the match to the one left at her campsite, and a zipper pull stamped with the map symbol from her day pack. The nest was less than a mile from her camp. The items were weathered, but not enough for 6 months in the open. They had been moved. 3 days after the eagle's nest discovery, a secondary search team combed the snowy slope below the towering pine. The wind cut through the trees in hollow bursts, carrying the sound of distant cracking ice. Under a thin layer of moss and frost-shattered shale, they uncovered something that didn't belong: a small nylon-wrapped bundle, weather-worn but intact. Inside was a waterproof journal. On the inside flap, in faded ink, was written, "Rachel E. Hale, in case I don't make it back." The final entries were dated August 5th and 6th, 2019. The handwriting was steady at first, then shakier. Something feels off. Slept near the stream, woke up high above the ridge. No memory of moving. Hearing things, not animals. Following a trail that isn't on my map. It keeps going when it shouldn't. I'm not alone. A later note read, "Saw something watching from the trees. Not a bear, not a person. Left the earring, still okay then." The last line, scrawled unevenly, was almost illegible. "I heard the mountain breathing." The trail ends. Her body was never found. The wilderness had held her for 6 months, and then, piece by piece, began giving her back. Rachel Hale's disappearance remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in the history of Grand Teton National Park. No remains, no definitive cause, no clear trail of what happened in those final hours. The recovered jacket, the matching earrings, the photograph, and the journal entries hint at a presence, something she sensed but could not name. Searchers and investigators still debate the possibilities: disorientation, foul play, a hidden crevasse, or something stranger. But the physical evidence refuses to settle into a logical explanation. Her mother still keeps Rachel's room untouched, a silent shrine to the girl who loved the solitude of high trails. Rangers say that sometimes hikers report hearing whispers on the wind near Cascade Canyon, or feeling watched. Whether it's grief's echo or something else, no one knows. What is certain is that the mountain keeps its own secrets, and only returns them when it chooses. Months after the case was officially closed, a lone backcountry skier reported finding a cluster of white columbine flowers arranged neatly on a flat stone, in almost the exact spot where Rachel's tent had once stood. The snow around it was untouched, no tracks leading in or out. Rangers investigated, but by the time they arrived, the flowers had vanished beneath fresh powder. The skiers swore the scene felt wrong, unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Online forums reignited with theories: a prank, a sign from Rachel, or the work of whatever had taken her. Her name still lingers in whispered conversations among hikers, a cautionary tale spoken before long treks. Some call it superstition, others call it respect. But everyone who passes through that canyon knows one thing: Rachel Hale walked into the wild, and something out there walked with her,